What's up, y'all? It is Jazz. I am back. If you're returning from last episode, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. This is another perspective. I first want to thank everybody and anybody who has given me any love, any kind words, any support, any feedback on the show on last episode. Um Thank you. I'm appreciative. Whether you are a new acquaintance, whether you are a new follower, subscriber, whether you are a coworker, a friend, family, thank you. I genuinely appreciate it and I'm grateful. I want to acknowledge some of the changes that were made from last episode to now. So if you notice on the last episode, I opened with open-minded conversations as the title of the show, and that has now changed to another perspective. And I'm going to explain why I decided to change the title. I felt like open-minded conversations was less appropriate for the angle and the energy that I wanted the show to give off. I felt like it gave an expectation of another person, whether that was a co-host or a guest on every episode, and I wanted that energy to reflect more of an either or type of feel. Sometimes we will have guests on the show and other times it will just be me. Also, I did feel like I wanted the show to invite inclusivity of all perceptions and perspectives of life. So I wanted the title to reflect that, and I feel like we got it now. Another perspective. It fits well. It's very fitting. There is, according to me and the way I feel about life and everybody's perspective, we all got one, and there is no real right or wrong way to do life, but we can use the knowledge that we gain in our experiences to serve us in our best interest. So basically, this show is built to give us all a reality check, including me. Which brings me to today's topic: introspection, epiphanies, and realizations. So first, I'm going to share my thoughts with you all on how these recognitions can serve our path forward and how it affects us when we aren't receptive to these commonalities, okay? Last episode, we spoke on how we shrink ourselves in relation to others in a way where it silences us and causes us to conform. But I wanted to expand on that and discuss how we can sometimes even be our own enemies with our habits, our limiting beliefs and convictions, and our survival tactics. I'm going to share with you all an experience, an interaction that I had that made this topic a thing today. So what made me ultimately decide on this topic was that, I had a small yet powerful interaction this past week. And for anyone who knows me closely, knows that I've always wanted to do a podcast. I've been wanting to do a podcast, and I talked about starting a podcast since I believe COVID, which was, I believe 6 years ago at this point now. And I think ultimately looking back, I overthought the process a lot. I thought about the financial aspect of it. I thought about whether people would listen to it or not. I thought about the time I would have to dedicate to it, what that would look like for my schedule while I'm still trying to work a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, survive, and still have the energy to pursue it. But, this is what happens when you're more concerned with everything that's going on outside of you, right? We give excuses. We give the reasons why we cannot rather than the reasons why we can. We say we don't have the time, but look, there's things we don't have time for, and then there's things we make time for. Correct? And I was afraid of how I would be seen, how I would come across, how I would show up correctly. And I also didn't know how to talk into a camera without being nervous as fuck. I mean, a lot of y'all are listening to me on Spotify or Apple, So this is also being recorded for YouTube. I don't know if y'all know, but it is. And at one point, I started making YouTube videos, and they weren't consistent, and I still make them, but I was just so concerned with the algorithm, with being discovered and being seen, whether I was saying the right or the wrong thing. And sometimes we can be so out of tune with ourselves, and so much to the point where we let the results we haven't even gotten dictate how we operate, which is easy when you're so involved with the concerns of the world. Me not starting for 6 years, y'all, that was me letting my fear of the outcome keep me paralyzed. All these doubts, all these fears set me back 6 years. And even thinking about it, it just was not a primary, even though I knew I wanted to do it, it just was not a primary concern for me. When all I really had to do was simply apply the knowledge that I already had and just be brave enough to learn as I go. I just had to apply me knowing that this is something that I want to do, and then just go out there and do it. And the crazy part is, before this podcast idea, executing an idea, a vision, anything, it never was an issue for me. It's so many things that I've tried, y'all, that I won't say I failed at it. I won't say that it was for nothing, for no reason, because there were lessons I learned through those experiences. But I was more used to being behind the scenes than I was in front of it. And it's so interesting how sometimes a higher power, whoever you might believe in, and that's cool too, will bless us with information through other people, right? And sometimes it can be encouragement that we didn't even know we needed. So this past week, I ended up having a conversation with someone that I recently got acquainted with and just met, and it served a realization for me. I thought about how that communication just flowed, and it didn't feel forced. We were able to be vulnerable, transparent, honest, so genuine. It was a live call, y'all. And I immediately thought, well, damn, this is how I want my podcast to feel to my listeners. I want it to feel personal. I want it to feel like we're friends, and we're just talking, and we're just learning together, and we're just figuring life out together. And in that moment, I did not focus so much on my anxiety, so much on my worries, or who was listening to me, who was seeing me. It was like 40 people in that live call. I started thinking, well, damn, how can I show up like this for my people? Because the person I was talking to already exemplifies that and shows up beautifully for their audience. And sometimes all it takes is a mental reframe. That person was just being themselves. They were being conversational. All it takes is that mental reframe for how you're seeing yourself versus a challenge in order to overcome it and step into alignment with your vision. I never met this person a day in my life, but there was so much beauty, there was so much flow, there was so much wisdom and curiosity in that exchange. That was the experience that caused my perspective to shift in the energy I was presenting in. So then I started to think and reflect. Okay, I had an introspective moment. Okay, so what are some ways I find myself to show up, to be honest, vulnerable, transparent? And personally, I typically find my freedom through expression, whether it's on the phone, venting to a friend, finding solutions to my issues, to their issues, whatever. Going for a walk, talking out loud to the universe, praying out loud to the universe, God, spirit, whoever you believe in. And even sometimes I even put it on paper. I put it on wax. I put that shit on wax, literally. And I'll journal it out and I'll write it out. So what I ultimately want y'all to understand, and stay with me, y'all, is the mental reframe that begins to take place, right? I seen someone else doing what they were called to do. And I seen the way that they were showing up. And I noted the way that I showed up with what I wanted to do and what I wanted to pursue. And I questioned it. I asked, how did they do that? How can I do that? What brings me close to that energy? So then my ultimate epiphany was that this podcast is another form of journaling for me, y'all. This is my open book to the world, to my community. This is a space for healthy expression where I'm able to talk to people who understand where I'm coming from and who may have also been down a similar path to me or even different and still can relate. But see, that's where community starts, right? Community starts with relatability, understanding, transparency, and support. And so I use that realization to serve me. And now it's like when I'm working on the show, I'm able to look into the camera and there be no hesitation. There be no nervousness, right? I can speak to you all without worrying and being concerned of Oh, well, how will this come off? Will this be accepted? Will I say the wrong thing? I no longer feel that way. I no longer care. And of course, I care about you all, but sometimes I think it's worth it to be open to another person. And hey, if this show is not for you, then it's not, and I respect it. If my style, the way I talk, the way I express myself, is not for you, then I respect that. This is just not the space for you. And I would expect you to have the same mentality with anyone, right? So, I wanted to also go over another way to build confidence, because it's not just, through an interaction you might have, Um, they say that repetition is the father of learning, right? And ultimately, confidence can be built, is built oftentimes from doing what you're not used to doing repeatedly to adjust to a new normal. And sometimes we have to put ourselves out there to be receptive to what we may get out of it. Whether it's great or not so great, we can still learn a lesson through that experience. Sometimes we don't show up in the ways we know we have the potential to, oftentimes just simply out of fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not knowing what comes next. But when you get in a space when you're wanting a different experience, while you're being dissatisfied with your current reality, you will ultimately shift anyway. Even though you've been sitting on that realization for days, weeks, months, hell, even like me, years. The dissatisfaction begins to trump the fear. And the fear itself is simply just your brain, our brains, reacting to what we think is danger due to our conditioning from our lived experiences and understandings, right? Naturally, it's a preference to be comfortable and safe. But as humans, we will sometimes self-sabotage through our limiting beliefs. And we will mask them with excuses that never even made sense to mask with. Because the truth is, sometimes we're just too lazy, y'all, to try to think differently. Sometimes we're just too lazy to try to show up differently because we don't feel like doing the uncomfortable work that comes with it. You see, there's freedom in knowing that fear is literally the doorway to everything we want for ourselves that we keep avoiding. We just have to apply it to finally know what that freedom feels like. And I'll say this, self-preservation can be the enemy to your success only if you allow it to be. And learning something new gives us the opportunity to integrate that knowledge. But when we avoid the introspection, when we avoid the epiphanies, when we avoid the realizations, when we avoid the turning moments that come with it, it prevents us from integrating it and being able to put it into practice. My point isn't to tell you just to wake up. You see, my point is to tell you to be receptive, to allow yourself to act on what you dream will benefit your well-being, will give you opportunity. So just start, and the rest will truly figure itself out. Just be open to learning as you go. So, with all of this said, if you're still listening, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to reflect on that aspect of yourself, on a part of you that you want to evolve, or a part of your life that you want to change. Where are you now versus where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And what are the reasons you have yet to act? What are the excuses that you are currently giving yourself? Then ask, how can you bridge the gap? How can you take one step forward to bring you closer to that opportunity, to that change? What is one way you can integrate? Take that moment, take that introspective moment, that realization, that epiphany, and do something with it. That is all I have for y'all today. This has been a rough one. I tried to record a few times for y'all, and camera kept shutting off on me, but we made it. We here. And yeah, that's all I have for y'all. This has just been another perspective with Jazz. I'll tap back in with y'all next Sunday. Take care. Peace.